Hi, welcome. For anyone who has heard of Seattle and Portland, well, I have news for you. There's actually a road between Seattle and Portland. I mean, that's a joke. Of course, all of you know that. And it's 200. There's actually 204 miles between Seattle and Portland. And of course, like if you're a normal person, you would be driving you would be driving between those two towns. So Seattle to Portland is 204 miles, and if you're a normal person, you would just get in your car, drive, and or like you could fly too, and so that's what people do. But there are some crazy people who actually get on their bike and go from Seattle to Portland. It's actually an annual ride, and there's a huge amount of people that do it. It's like 10,000 people do it in a festival together. So it's like one of the traditions of the Pacific Northwest. And I have the pleasure and honor of actually doing the Seattle to Portland 204 miles in a day. And it's actually one of the most fun things I did. I started about maybe 6 in the morning. We started riding, and I remember reaching, it was 7 o'clock at night or so. It was still light, but I mean, it was like it's like it was light, but like we had maybe 1 hour of sunlight left, and there is a town called Centralia, halfway between Seattle and Portland. And Centralia is, well, it's a play on being central between those two cities. So like the first big big stop, or the century, was actually at Centralia, and then there's still 100 more miles to go. So imagine that, like you've ridden 100 miles and you're like, okay, now we're done, and then it's like, no, actually you're not done. You're only halfway done. So so it's like just a funny, great experience. 204 miles in a day. And the most fun part had been the ride itself, but I really enjoyed training for this STP too, because STP is a 204-mile ride, so it's not something that you can just do. Like even for a very very fit person, I'm a mountaineer, so my fitness level is high, but each modality of fitness has its own stamina and endurance. So for doing a long bike ride, you actually need to get on a bike and do like a long bike ride or half of that or something. So for a 204-mile bike ride, I trained by eventually building up to doing a 100-mile training ride on Saturdays and Sundays. So I would do 100-mile on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then I would do shorter rides each day of the week, something like that. So something that kept my stamina high. I did that over a few months, 3-4 months. You build up to doing 100-mile. You start by doing a 5-mile ride, 10-mile ride, depending on what your fitness level is. If you're already an experienced biker, maybe you do 20 miles. You're starting by doing 20 miles, and eventually 20 miles a day to 30 miles, 40 miles, and then 50 miles. And then like it's a very very good idea to do like one or two 100-mile bike rides. They're called centuries, 100 miles. So I think I did, like I remember doing one century for sure, like, but I, like in my training I would actually do just 100-mile riding in a park, like 10 mile, 10 mile, 10 mile, 10 mile. I would do it 10 times, so I would total up to 100. And that's actually what allowed me to actually do the 204 mile in one day, like starting in the morning, around 6. The bike ride, like it's a supported bike ride, so you start, and then you are there's rest stop as in like a, not as a rest stop, like you have water and some fuel that you can get, and then you keep going. So I started in the morning, like checkpoints, and then around midday Centralia, or I think it was 1 o'clock actually, and then another 100 miles. And Seattle Portland is actually quite a flat ride, so like it's not like there aren't any mountains in it. Like there's one bridge, like that's actually a very beautiful climb. But other than that, it's like a flat ride, so it's not too difficult that way, but incredibly fun. So Seattle to Portland, bike riders, if you've done it, hello from a fellow bike rider. And if you're thinking of doing it, start like 3-4 months early at least, and like you can do it in a day. If you don't feel like doing it in a day, you can, like a lot of people, most people actually do it in 2 days. So they do 100 mile, sleep in Centralia, and then they get them in the morning and do it 100 mile another day. So that's another way of doing it. It's incredibly fun. You make so many friends. There are like, literally so many people around you, and it's so fun to do. So so do try it, and thank you so much for listening, and come back soon and hear me again. Bye.